Women in the dating world, how often do you get the ick from someone you're seeing? Is it a lot or rarely?
First and foremost, guys, happy St. Patrick's Day. And in the interest of St. Patty's, I figured we should play a game where we get to be a big green murder machine. And seeing as the only Doom game I have is Doom 3 for the original Xbox, this one was a no-brainer. The intergalactic ring world killer himself, and now TV celebrity, Mr. Master Chief. So let's jump right in.
I'm the extremely picky type, so very often, with every guy I've tried to date in the last 3 years. It's not always a deserved ick, admittedly. Sometimes it can be in texting pre-first date, like if he doesn't ask me questions about myself, replies with just a few words to a thoughtful message I sent, doesn't further the conversation in any meaningful way. I did date someone recently for about 3 months, and I got the ick because he always tried to steer me while walking together. If we were walking down the sidewalk and other people were in our path, he would grab the back of my neck and guide me around them. I just couldn't deal with it. It made me feel like a toddler. I tried to talk to him about it, but he did it again directly after the conversation, and I broke it off. Another guy never toweled his back after he got out of the shower, so he always had a wet patch on the back of his shirt. My list of petty icks is endless.
That neck-touching one definitely varies. I wouldn't do it as a default move, but I knew a girl who really enjoyed having the back of her neck gently touched by her partner in public places. To her, it was a subtly intimate action that didn't constitute PDA, so she really enjoyed it. Okay, well, first of all, I don't like the term ick, but when I was still dating, there are lots of things other guys did to make me feel unattracted to them. Small things that showed they were inconsiderate, like not opening the door for me, or walking behind me while I'm going upstairs. I feel like a lot of guys from this generation never really learned proper manners. When I noticed the first time hanging with this man that he gossiped about his friends, if he can't keep their lives at least somewhat private, then what is he going to do down the line with me? I'd love to gossip with my man, but not after just meeting him.
Oh my god, this! Thank you for saying this! I wondered if I should let this stuff go, but it's such a red flag to me. I understand if you've been dating for over a year and are exclusive, but early on, I feel like it signals an overall lack of consideration for others, and two-facedness in your relationship going forward.
Spot on. Later on, he showed me he really didn't respect himself, so entertains himself with other people's lives to distract from his own. Truly a hot mess, and I had to separate myself. Some people have masks so they don't reveal themselves till later, or there's people like this who show them early on. I'm waiting to find my ultimate green flag man. These reds are tiring me out. My boyfriend for a whopping unfortunate 4 years, now my ex, would shove his tongue in my mouth, and instead of gently caressing my tongue with his, he would just wildly move it side to side, and fast. And his tongue wouldn't even be relaxed and soft. It was stiff and tensed. Ugh. Guy I was dating had so much saliva that he practically slobbered all over my lips and chin, and then shoved his tongue in my mouth. I don't like French kissing, let alone being waterboarded by someone else's spit. Ooh, that's a mood. Ugh. If I'm really into someone, I won't get icked out, even when I should. But this one guy I was dating, but never 100% into, would ick me out constantly, in the pettiest ways. Like he called his Jeep Compass a truck, and I was extremely icked out. I just call everything cars. I don't see the whole, oh, I've got a truck ego compensation. I once had a lady whose grandkids that were with her opened their door into my car's side view mirror, thankfully not my car itself. And so I got out and caught her as she was leaving the store that we were both parked in the lot of, and said, "Hey, is this your car?" And her first response was, "It's my truck, yes." And I said, "Okay, well, you just want to let you know that you should probably talk to your grandkids about how they open their doors and being a little more careful, because they opened theirs right into my car. My car's fine, and your door's fine, so I'm not worried about it, but you might just want to talk to them." And it was funny, because as soon as I said, your grandkids opened their door into my car, that whole, it's my truck, Kareniness dropped from her face, and you could just see the oh shit expression take over.
I never understood the whole ego thing around having a truck. What is it about? I've got a giant steel box someone else built. Congrats, dude. Good for you. It'd be an honor to shake the hand of such a prestigious individual. Truck people, dude. So far, it's been every time. At least this time around with trying to date. From one guy being an absolute slob, to another guy being sweet, but then immediately switching to being egotistical and just an absolute liar. Dating is swell lately. The lack of teeth brushing and washing themselves properly. I once went on a trip with a guy and realized that brushing his teeth was not part of his morning or nightly routine. After 2 days, I kindly reminded him, and he was offended. It got to a point where I avoided anything that may lead to a kiss, and he started getting upset that I wasn't being affectionate. I did communicate the issue, and I ended things immediately after that trip. He also did not wash himself with soap on that trip. It's crazy what you come to learn about people when you spend extended periods of time with them. I got out of a 7-year relationship last year and have been trying my damnedest to understand the dating world these days. I simply don't understand the ick thing. Like someone or don't find reasons to give up on someone because they accidentally hit your ick button. That's what children do when encountering a new food for the first time. If you aren't feeling it with someone, you don't need to dissect it into a million instances of why. Just tell them you don't want to see them anymore. On the contrary, if you like someone otherwise, perfectly fine, and they do something you don't like, say something if it's a fundamental problem for you, be an adult and communicate so they stop because you like them enough that you want to be around them more. Or decide it's not actually something all that important to you, and it was just your scapegoat for getting out of past situations because you didn't like the person. Likely, it was easier to peg it on one specific mannerism than recognize not everyone is everything to you. Dating is trying flavors and providing the grace that everyone has their own taste and style. You don't have to like everything, but a garnish shouldn't keep you from enjoying a meal whose flavor matches your taste. Just some perspective from an old biddy trying to relearn this new scene. The ick is something really small about a person that you just can't stand. For example, you don't like the way this man opens his car doors, so you're just like, ugh. If it's a new potential partner, you won't want to be with them over the ick. If it's someone you've been with for a while, you just learn to live with the ick. I think the author understands what the ick is, and is pointing out that it's stupid and petty, even with new people. If you're spending energy focusing on your list of turn-offs, you may exaggerate how much they turn you off and become a more negative and rejectful person. Yeah, I personally think the whole ick thing is kinda dumb. We all have weird little quirks. Back in the day, I stopped liking a guy because of the way he'd switch lanes while driving. That led me to realize I just didn't like the pace of almost anything he did. We were simply operating at totally different speeds. Makes sense, he was a Midwesterner and I was a South Floridan. But he would slow down significantly in order to switch lanes and do it with such hesitation. We were around 28, so it's not like he was a new driver. He had the most bizarrely inefficient ways to do certain things, and it drove me nuts. Oh, it's a struggle not to get the ick several times with the same guy. I try to push through it, but it's hard. I get an ick from their messy houses, walking too far ahead of me, when they make mean comments about other people, weird innuendos, body odor, emotional immaturity, etc. I've stopped going on dates recently because it was honestly just not enjoyable, and it genuinely made me doubt whether I even found men attractive. I get the ick quite often. I'm pretty picky and super happy being single, so I just roll with it. Some of my main icks are 1. A guy that texts me way too much or too intensely before even meeting. There was one that told me, I had a crappy day today, but I know tomorrow will be amazing because I get to see you, and this is making me smile so much. We had been talking for 2 days, not even 10 texts, and never met in person. That felt so intense so quickly that I canceled the date and ultimately told him I was no longer interested. 2. Went on a date with a guy and went back to his place to do the you-know-what. He asked if I wanted the lights on or off, which is thoughtful. I said on. He still turned them off, though. No big deal, sure, but why ask? The intimacy was meh at best, but whatever. The ick came, though, when he tossed me a gross towel to cover myself when I got up to go to the bathroom. He lived alone. I told him I felt comfortable walking naked to the bathroom, and he said he didn't feel comfortable with me walking naked to the bathroom. Again, he lived alone, and we'd just done it. This one still puzzles me. 3. A guy invited me to his brother's wedding while we were out on our first date. I politely declined and said we just met. He said that he sees a future with me and doesn't think it's too early. That freaked me out. 4. Someone on a dating app asked for my Instagram account as the first message. I said I'm private and prefer to not share without having met them. I also have 6 photos, including full-length ones on my dating profile, so it's not as if he can't make out what I look like. He said social media was critical for him, and if I respected him, I'd give him my handle. Needless to say, I unmatched. 5. A guy was late by 25 minutes on our first date. He kept texting 5 minutes away, so I didn't leave. When he showed up, he asked no questions about me and just monologued about himself. I felt so bored and disrespected. He never apologized for being late. I have lots of other stories. Most of them revolve around a blatant lack of respect or being overly intense too early, but for today, I'll leave it here. Real people have done this to someone? Ugh. Like, I personally jump into things pretty quick with people, but some of these guys? Yikes. And the personal shame issues that come with throwing a towel at someone to cover themselves in your one-person apartment as they walk to the bathroom so you don't have to look at them while they walk to the bathroom despite just doing it with them? I can't justify that one either. And the whole social media is critical for me, and if you respect me, you'll give me your handle. Respect you? I don't even f***ing know you. Ugh, I feel so bad for this poor girl. Yikes. Although I do feel better about myself, so despite the 10,000 years of cringe wrinkles now on my face, that's a silver lining, I guess. So boys, let's make sure we hold ourselves a little more accountable than these guys, okay? I get it a bit if I'm not interested, I find. One guy was ticking a lot of boxes, good looking, and was interested, but it all came to a halt as soon as he called me hun. How are you, hun? He would do it so often that I felt like I was talking to a girlfriend. Just can't do it. If anything, call me babe. Like, geez. I did tell him this, yet he ignored my request, and that's when the ick came in. But what made me stop completely was when he said, "Oh, that's a bit poopy." Like, sir, you are a 33-year-old man. Say shit like the rest of us. I told my mother and she cracked up laughing. I was on a date one time, and the guy didn't smile the entirety of it, which was weird because when he was texting before, he was super positive and upbeat, but in person, he had the energy of someone at a funeral. Then he told me he didn't like my handbag, and that's when I got icked out. As you should. Negging is so rude and childish. Like, why did he feel the need to say that? I have no idea. I was baffled because I'd never encountered anyone telling me that they didn't like a part of my outfit. It's fine if someone doesn't like it, but to say it to my face is just bizarre. I just shrugged and said, well, I like it. As we all should. Don't let people who feel the need to throw out a rude opinion because, I don't know, they're special and the world needs to hear what they have to say, affect you. If we give people like that power over us, we just feed their ego and give them more reasons to be a narcissist. I would say pretty often, actually, but that's after a year of being single out of a 17-year marriage. At first I was really quick to have rose-colored glasses, and now it's becoming easier and easier to get the ick. I think I'm just building my self-confidence and realizing I don't have time for people who I'm really not attracted to. Some of my notable icks include misspelling of simple words regularly, non-existent or really bad grammar, not being able to or bother learning how to pronounce my name. Yes, this is an actual thing that astonishingly many men have failed at. My name isn't anything crazy, and a famous American actress has the same first name as me. I'm originally from Europe, but this name is also common in North America. You can also Google how to pronounce it. It's 3 syllables. One guy I briefly dated literally wouldn't say my name and called me a nickname that I didn't like. He just said, couldn't do it, it's too hard. Never again. Other ones include forgetting important details about me that I've told them more than once, being repeatedly late, being rude to service staff or any other customer service worker, assuming that I really want to sleep with them with no prior indication on my end, bad breath, and main character syndrome, as well as talking about themselves constantly. Before I met my now boyfriend, I got a bit of an ick from a guy I was briefly dating who sent me a P-Hub link on how to give better down south mouth action, and told me I could watch it with my friends. Ugh. I find the ick usually is the moment when you realize you're not as attracted to someone as you hoped, whether it's something they do that shows why you're not compatible, or something kind of silly and your reaction just shows that you're not into that person enough to date them. It's one thing to show your partner a video you saw and say, hey, I'd like to try this if you're down for it and see if we like it. But to send it to someone that you've been briefly dating, and then to tell them to watch it with their friends? This is why we can't have nice things. Ah, the ick. Quite familiar with her. I went on a stint before I met my current partner where I was painfully stuck in the online dating scene. I think there was a stretch of 2 months where I went on 30 first dates. Here are a few of the ick highlights. I had one guy openly hit on our waitress at dinner in front of me. Did not see him again. Another guy referred to women as females. Yuck. Another tried to communicate with me solely through Snapchat. I'm in my mid-20s. Grow up. Another guy used so much aftershave or cologne or whatever it was that it made me cough when I was in his car. Another openly bashed cats. I have 2, and pictures of them were on my dating profile. Another guy didn't open the door for an elderly woman in front of us. Another guy clipped his toenails immediately after we did the deed, and didn't pick his clippings up off the floor. Another tried to mansplain the difference between bourbon and whiskey to me, and was wrong. My Kentucky native self wanted to slap him. Another guy sucked the spit out of his retainer after taking it out. Not entirely sure why this grossed me out so much, but just rinse it in your sink. Another guy sent me flowers after telling me to go buy a Plan B and called himself the Rizzler on a note. And last but most certainly not least, a guy told me he loved me after 3 dates and wrote me the most melodramatic love note I think I've ever read in my life after I told him that I don't think we should see each other anymore. Same guy recently released an album with his band, and there was a song about me in it. Ugh. Has there ever been a more compensatory nickname for oneself than the Rizzler? The only thing I can think that might top it is Dickmaster. A lot. And it's nearly always something that sounds ridiculous on its own. But previous experience has also taught me that those little icks are nearly always an early indicator of a fundamental incompatibility. For example, I will never again date a man who refuses to dance with me. Men who refuse to dance usually care way too much about other people's opinions and are generally incapable of any kind of vulnerability. Unfortunately, many times with online dating. I have lots of stories, I'll just tell one. This guy called me, had an accent that did not match his picture at all, asked me my last name very quickly, and I told him no, to which he then told me that he lived with his mother and wanted to treat me like a queen. He then proceeded to sing to me. Goodbye. I usually have to like a guy first, and then things happen that make me feel like we aren't right for each other. That's how I define the ick. I dated a guy for a while who would get into these super negative rants about people and work. He would get into these one-sided conversations, and I would just listen for hours. It didn't happen all of the time, and often he was a very lovely human. I just really became less and less attracted to him each time this happened. Another guy started talking to me about meeting his parents after a second date. There were other things too, but they were too personal and specific for me to post here. We texted a fair bit, and I enjoyed talking with him, but he was very intense. I canceled a date that would have been our third because my friend was going through postpartum and reached out to me for help that day. He sent me a long message asking about where this relationship was going. It was too much. I messaged him back and let him know that I didn't want to continue seeing him. I think the ick is usually your instincts telling you that people aren't a good match, or maybe even aren't safe. Every time I've ignored it in the past, it's burned me, so now I listen. Alright, now we hop into the rapid fire segment for stories too short to make a full entry out of, but too good to be left out. Let's jump in. I rarely get the ick, but I got it one time when I kissed a guy and his lips were chapped. Felt like kissing sandpaper. I kissed a guy and he was wildly machine gun tonguing my mouth. Ugh. My boyfriend gives me the ick daily, but I love him. Being rude to servers and tipping poorly, and getting upset if I don't respond to their messages on time. On Tinder, if I'm active, it's daily. I went to this guy's house and it was an absolute disaster. I immediately got the ick, but now he's a great friend of mine. My weirdest ick is high-arched feet. I don't know why, but I just can't handle them. Daily, I give myself the ick. He chewed with his mouth open and smacked his lips. It was all... Ugh. A lot of things, like trauma dumping on the first meeting or being a bad kisser. So guys, that's it for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm ReddList. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.
It blew right through us. 50 cal rockets didn't do a thing.